Good afternoon, students. Here we are going to deal about the concept core of embedded systems. In previous units, we have discussed what is an embedded system and what are the working parts of an embedded system. So in this today's topic, we are going to discuss about the core of an embedded system. So as we all know, embedded systems are domain and application specific and are built around the central core. The core of the embedded system falls into any of the following categories. So the first one is general purpose, as we all seen here in a script. That is, first one is general purpose and domain specific processor. In that, internally, these general purpose and domain specific processors are divided into microprocessors and microcontroller and digital signal processors. So second part is we are calling it as an ASIC, application specific integrated circuits. And third one is PLDs, programmable logic devices. And fourth one is commercial off the shelf components, that is COTs. So firstly, we are going to deal about the general purpose and domain specific processors. In that, the first thing we are going to discuss is about the microprocessor. Almost 80% of the embedded systems are processors or controller based. The processor may be microprocessor or a microcontroller or a digital signal processor depending upon the domain and application. So we all know a microprocessor is a silicon chip representing a central processing unit. A microprocessor is a microprocessor is a dependent unit and it requires the combination of other hardware like memory, timer unit, interrupt controller, etc. for a proper functioning. So the coming to the history of a microprocessors, as we all know in a subject of microprocessor and microcontroller, the first microprocessor was designed by an Intel company in the year 1971. It is a 4-bit processor and it is named as 4004. So secondly, the second processor launched by the same company in the year 1972, that we are calling it as 808, the 8008. It is an 8-bit processor. In the year 1974, Intel launched 8080 microprocessor. In the same year, the Motorola company also launched a microprocessor named it as 6800. So the Intel company in the year 1976, it launched 8085 microprocessor. We are calling it as a fundamental microprocessor. So it is 8085 is a 8-bit processor. Later on, the evolution of the processor start like 8086 till Core i7. So coming to the architecture of a microprocessor design, how we are going to design these particular microprocessors and microcontrollers in the sense. So we are going to follow two types of architectures, that is nothing but Harvard and von Neumann architectures. So we can see in this slide what are the Harvard architecture features and what are the von Neumann architecture features and what is the difference between von Neumann and Harvard architecture. So I'm briefing about what is a Harvard architecture and what is a von Neumann architecture. Coming to the Harvard architecture, it has separate buses for the instruction as well as the data fetching. So it is easier to pipeline. So high performance can be achieved, comparatively high cost. Since data memory and program memory are stored physically in different locations, no chances exist for accidental corruption of a program memory. So here we are using two separate memories for program and data storage. So the corruption of a program may not occur in Harvard architecture. So coming to the von Neumann architecture, it shares single common bus for instructions and data fetching. So low performance as compared to the Harvard architecture. So it is cheaper compared to the Harvard architecture. And program and data memory shares the same memory space or same space. So the corruption of a program may occur. So we are storing in this von Neumann architecture, program and data memory is stored in a single same chip. So as we all know, this these are the architectures of Harvard and von Neumann architectures. So coming to the instruction set design, the instruction set design architecture of any software or a controller depends upon a two main instruction sets, that is nothing but RISC and CISC. So coming to the RISC is nothing but it is the reduced instruction set computation. So as the name itself indicates that it is a reduced instruction set computation, means we are having less number of instructions here in RISC. So it contains lesser number of instructions. So the instruction pipelining and increased execution speed. The orthogonal instruction set. RISC is having the orthogonal instruction set. In the sense, allows each instruction to operate on any type, any register or any addressing mode. Operations are performed on registers only. These memory operators are used for load and store purpose. A large number of registers are available. Programmer need to write more code since instructions are simple. So simply we are going to use this particular RISC instruction architecture in Harvard architectures. When coming to the CISC architecture, that is complex instruction set computing. So more number of, the name itself indicates that it consists of more number of instructions. So no instruction pipelining here. Non-orthogonal instruction set. So non-orthogonal in the sense all instructions are not allowed to operate on any register and use any addressing mode. Operations are performed either on register or memory depending on instruction. The number of general purpose registers are very limited. Instructions are like macros in C language. A programmer can achieve a desired functionality with a single instruction, which in turn provides the effect of using more simpler single instructions in RISC. So we can use this RISC instructions in von Neumann and Harvard architecture. In both types of architecture, we can use this RISC instruction set. So coming to a microcontroller. A microcontroller is a highly integrated chip that contains a CPU, touchpad, RAM, special and general purpose registers, register arrays, on-chip RAM, flash memory, program storage, timer and interrupt control, etc. With on a single chip, we are calling it as an microcontrollers. So Texas Instruments is considered as the world's first microcontroller. So Texas Instrument TMS 1000 is the first first microcontroller we are calling it as. So some embedded system applications requires only 8-bit controllers, whereas some requires superior performance and computational needs demand 16 or 32-bit controllers. For simple applications, we are using simple 8-bit microcontrollers, as we studied about 8051 microcontroller in microprocessor and microcontroller. So that we are calling it as a simple 8-bit microcontroller. So we are having many like 16 or 32-bit microcontrollers too for complex applications. The instruction set of a microcontroller can be either it may be a RISC or a CISC. So this is briefly about a microcontroller, and another general purpose and domain specific processor is digital signal processing. So these DSPs are much powerful when compared to a general purpose processors. So DSPs are powerful special purpose 18, 16, 32-bit microprocessor designed to meet the computational demands and power constraints of today embedded audio, video, and communication applications. DSPs are 2 to 3 times faster from microprocessors. So it consists of program memory, data memory that is nothing but RAM, temporary memory, and computational engine input-output. So let us discuss about what is the program memory, what is data memory of DSP, what is the computational engine and the input-output unit. So this coming to the program memory, it is a memory for storing the program required by a DSP to process the data. So data memory, generally we call it as a temporary memory. So it is working memory for storing temporary variables and data or signal to be processed. So coming to the computational engine, so as it acts like an ALU in a general purpose processors. So in DSP, we are calling it as a computational engine. It performs the signal processing in accordance with the stored program memory. Computational engine consists of arithmetic units, and each of them operates simultaneously to increase the execution speed. Coming to the input-output unit, it acts as an interface between the outside world and DSP. It is responsible for capturing the signals to be processed and delivers the processed signals. So simply input output unit takes the information to the processor and gives it to the processor, and it takes the information from processor to the outside world. This is, we are calling it as an input output unit. So coming to the ASICs, that is next concept in a core of embedded system, is next type of processor is nothing but ASIC, application specific integrated circuit, we are calling it as. So this is the ASIC in the sense I'm abbreviating ASIC, that is application specific integrated circuits. So as we all know, the name itself indicates it is an application specific. So an application specific integrated circuit is an integrated circuit customized for a particular use rather than intended for general purpose use. So as name, it is an application oriented as a device. It is an application oriented IC. So it integrates several functions into a single chip. It integrates several functions, like in the sense in a single chip we can perform many applications for which is application based of that particular task. It takes up very small area, hence help in designing smaller systems. So it is a very, it takes very small space, as a single chip as it consumes a very small area in the total system, thereby helps in the design of smaller system with high capabilities or functionalities. The developer of such chips may not be interested in revealing the internal detail of it. So this ASIC is available in much lower cost. The cost is very less for an ASIC. So coming to PLDs, next concept is nothing but PLDs. So the full form of PLD is programmable logic devices. A programmable logic device, or PLD, is an electronic component used to build pre-configurable digital circuits. Unlike a logic gate, as we all know, logic gate is having a fixed function. We are giving some inputs. Accordingly, it performs the operation. It may be and or whatever it may be, and gives the output. But PLDs, we need to the operation is based on the application what we are giving. Like PLDs have an undefined function at the time of manufacture, so the user can use it according to the design of a digital circuits. Before the PLDs can be used in the circuit, it may be programmed, that is reconfigured. A variety of tools are available for the designers of PLDs, which are inexpensive and help to develop, simulate, and test the designs. So PLDs having the following two major types. So we are having two major types of PLDs that we are calling it as CPLDs and FPGAs. CPLDs in the sense complex programmable logic devices. FPGAs are field programmable gate arrays. CPLDs offer much smaller amount of logic, up to 1000 gates. So FPGAs offers much higher configuration compared to CPLDs. So coming to the advantages of PLDs, PLDs offers customers much more flexibility during the design cycle. PLDs can be the main advantages. PLDs can be reprogrammed even after the piece of equipment is shipped to a customer. So next concept is last concept in this part is nothing but COT. So the full form of a COT is commercial of the shelf components. We are calling simply it as COTs. A commercial of this shelf product is one which is used as is. So here we are using the product. They provide easy integration or interoperability with existing system components. So the major advantage of using COTs is that they are readily available in the market or cheap, and a developer can cut down his or her development time to a great extent. The major drawback, so it is like it is readily available. The major advantage of these COTs is it is readily available and user may use it as it is. But the major drawback why we are not going for this COTs is the major drawback of COT component is embedded design is that the manufacturer of COT component may withdraw the product or discontinue the production of COTs at any time if rapid change in technology occurs. So the main advantage of COT is ready to use, easy to integrate, reduces development time. Disadvantages, as we discussed previously, so vendor or manufacturer may discontinue the production of particular COT products. So as we all know, next concept is nothing but sensors and actuators. As we all know what is sensor and what is actuators. So a sensor is used for taking input. It is a transducer that converts energy from one form to another for any measurement or control purpose. Example, a temperature sensor. Or an object detector, a object detector, obstacle detector, all these comes under a sensor. So what is an actuator? Actuator is for output. Sensor is like it acts like a one input, and actuator it acts like an output. It is a transducer that may be either mechanical or electrical, which converts signal to corresponding physical actions. Example, LED light emitting diode. So it is giving an output. Sensor is nothing but an input. Simply we can remember in this way. As we all know, LED is a PN junction diode and contains of cathode and anode. So we all know that is the anode is connected to a positive terminal and cathode is connected to a negative terminal of LED. So the next is communication interfaces. For an embedded system, the communication interfaces can be broadly classified into onboard communication interfaces and inter-integrated circuits, I2C. So I'm not going in depth of these communication interfaces. Let us discuss this in another class.